Hello, this is Faye from the Crochet Circle podcast, and today I'm joined with Lyndsey, who is the owner of Phoenix Occupational Health.
Hi.
Hello, thank you for coming and being part of this.
You're welcome.
I do interviews every now and then. It's quite an infrequent thing because I like to do interviews with stuff that's really helpful, or, it's not an interview for the sake of an interview. And I think the information that you can pass us over today is really helpful. It helps massively that you are a crocheter.
Yes.
Do you want to show off your...
I made some mittens. I do a lot of festivals, and these took me a long time, and I did have a lot of help with them. But yeah, I was quite proud of these.
You're a massive blanket crocheter, aren't you?
Yes, lots of blankets, like super king size blankets.
Yeah.
Stuff that doesn't involve counting. Stuff that you can do with mad kids running around and dogs, and stuff that I can take with me to campsites and stuff as well.
You have a very busy life.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
It is, isn't it? So one of the other reasons that I was really keen to have Lyndsey on is because you're an entrepreneur as well. You've got your own company, and you employ quite a few people locally.
Yeah,
and which is incredible.
Yeah.
Given your backstory, and I'm going to ask you questions about that in a minute.
Okay.
But actually, I find your story really inspirational. It's nice to have you on, and like I said, the fact that you crochet as well is just even better. So can you tell us how you came to be in occupational health?
So I was in the Royal Navy. So I joined the Royal Navy in '98, and I joined specifically for the purpose to do my nurse training. So prior to that, I'd just finished A-levels and took a year out because I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. I did quite well in my A-levels, but didn't get the grades that I needed to become a physiotherapist, which is what I really wanted to do. So joined the Navy, and through the process of being in the military, I then got injured, and I had to work in adjusted duties to carry on.
So I know how you got injured, and I think you probably need to say how it is that you got injured. Matthew was telling me last night.
Oh, right.
This is quite full on.
Well, I don't really speak about it normally, but okay. So in basic training, you just have to get on. They kind of break you and then make you. The reason I got injured was I was running, and this, I don't want the military to come after me for saying anything, but basically, you have to run with boots on. The boots are very heavy, and so you have to have a certain level of fitness when you start, and then they build on that level of fitness. So I was running with heavy boots on and got lots of shin splints. And then I was doing an assault course, carrying a big log. I think it was in the region of 25 kilos.
A 25 kilo log?
Not by myself, there was a team of us. And we were running along a wall. So we were trying to hold this log and trying to run on the wall, and then you have to jump off at the end. And as I jumped off, I landed flat-footed, and both my arches in my feet just went, and my Achilles tendons kind of snapped as well. Not completely, partially. But then I just got up and carried on, because that's what you do. And so had some time in air casts and things, but this is basic training, and you've got 6 weeks in which to pass, and if you don't pass, you don't get on the university course, and you don't get a career and all this. So basically just took loads of painkillers and just carried on.
And went through.
Carried on. Yeah, and they basically said I shouldn't have done that, but I was so goal focused, and I'd got to get out of basic training to get my career. Once I did that and qualified, it's because I did manage to carry on, ran a mile and a half in 13 minutes.
I'm so impressed by that. I would have been down crying.
I don't even know how I did it looking back now. I don't know. I must have just been in a different world.
You're very focused and tenacious, though, aren't you?
Stubborn,
focused and tenacious.
Once I got out of basic training, then they said to me, basically take a year off, don't do any exercise, let things heal, have insoles for your shoes, and just let's see what happens. But basically, I got a diagnosis of something called compartment syndrome, which is where every bit of muscle sits inside a fascia or a skin, and my fascia was so badly scarred during basic training that every time you have oxygen demand, so you do anything, your muscles will grow. They don't stretch. So now in my shins and in my calves, if I do any exercise, and by exercise I mean stand up for more than 20 minutes or walk for probably longer than 20 minutes, I get cramps and I get pain. And if I continued, for example, if I went on an exercise bike or a treadmill, I start to get numbness in my toes, and they start on my little toes and they work in, because that blood supply is being compromised, because the muscles are trying to swell and they can't. And also it puts pressure on the nerve as well. So I've been told I can't do exercise, so I put loads of weight on, and that made things worse. But ended up being dismissed from the military because of the injury, and had to go through occupational health. And that's where I first had my taste of occupational health and thought, wow, this looks like the career I want to do.
Yeah.
And also because you're not standing up at the end of a patient's bed or working in A&E, which is my background, you can do a job 9 to 5, Monday to Friday-ish.
Yeah. She does not do. The ish is quite a broad band of ish, really.
Yeah. But if you were working in the NHS or for another provider, then you would be very much, 9 to 5. You'll see 8 to 10 patients a day. You're sat at a desk and you're more of a consultant.
Yeah.
So that's why I got into occupational health.
And what was the timescale for that?
So joined the Navy in 98, left in 2004, went to work for the prison service for 12 months in between times.
I told you, interesting background.
And then started working at the end of August 2004 for an occupational health company. Then you have to do another 3-year degree. So you've got my nursing degree, and then there's another 3-year degree on top of that. And then started my own company in 2011. Oh, and in between times I had a few kids as well.
Yeah. How many children?
3.
3 children.
First one's 2006, then 2010, and then 2012.
So within that time frame, you're also building up what you want to do and your own company.
Yeah.
And occupational health is it for you. You have really found your niche, haven't you?
Definitely. I love it. We support people to stay in work with really severe problems like cancers, ME, Parkinson's, things like that. So people who you would probably look at and think, wow, I don't know how you can stay in work. Yeah. Pretty much like myself as well. Because, people would look at me and say, well, you've got a disability. Why are you still working? But work is an outcome, as in it's a health outcome. Being in work is good for you. Yeah. People who are off sick, they get depressed, they get financial problems, and it just spirals. Yeah. And then
it's a real snowball, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just another thing and another thing and another thing. Yeah.
So on the NHS agenda and on the government agenda here in the UK, work is the health outcome. They really want people to go back to work, and that's why there's a push now to get people off of benefits.
Yeah. So. And it's because there's a very direct link there, I think, also into like mindfulness as a word, but really it's about kind of mental agility and keeping yourself focused on things and doing things that allow you to just breathe almost. And that's where the crochet bit of it comes in for me, and that just definitely. And I know that from so we have an amazing bunch of people that watch and listen to the podcast, and they're called the Crochet Clan.
Okay.
And I know, because we are a real community within the Crochet Clan, I know that there are lots of people that are in similar positions that can't work, whether that's through chronic illness or because they've got issues with abilities, and crochet is a real release for them. It's something that they can do and something that they can focus in on, but that can bring its own issues with the physicality of crocheting. Actually, I think lots of people think that it's just you're just sat there and there's not a lot of movement, but it is actually quite a physical process.
Definitely. Just to go back on what you said about the mindfulness, so I'm not Superwoman, and I accept I'm not Superwoman, and there have been times in my life where I've had mental illness. I had post-traumatic stress and postnatal depression after the birth of my child, Logan, the first child, and I found crochet so good. That's when I started, because I was sat at home with a young child who was constantly on. I was breastfeeding, so constantly on me, and I was like, what else can I do? So when he finally fell asleep, I was able to just do little granny squares and things like that, and kind of the repetitiveness of it and the achievement really helped. And I had a bout of depression, I think, in 2014, and when I went to see my doctor, he said, you must crochet at least once a day.
Love it.
Yeah. Because he knew that was a passion for me, and it was a time when if you start doing something that you like and that you get pleasure out of, your levels of adrenaline in the body will reduce, your levels of endorphin will increase, and you actually feel better. So yeah, go back onto that. What was the other question?
Can't remember.
The physicality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is quite a physical thing. I guess depending on how you crochet, and you know, some people will say there's a right way to crochet and a wrong way to crochet, and I would say whatever way you do it is the right way that's for you. But mine is quite a physical thing. You know, my arms are stretching out and I'm moving. I try and consciously move quite a lot when I'm crocheting, so I'm not just sat huddled in one position.
That's exactly right. So when we go into industry and we're looking at manufacturing processes, you know, we're really conscious about repetitive strain injury. Now, repetitive strain injury is any kind of injury that happens when you do the same thing over and over again. So obviously crochet is the same thing. Even though you're changing your stitches up, it is still the same movement. And I'm a bit the same as you in that when I'm always trying to get more yarn and I'm pulling and things like that. So that my left side's great, but my right side is pretty much the same. So a little bit of science behind repetitive strain is that when your muscles, when your cells inside your muscles respire, they do what they're supposed to do. They pass oxygen onto from the blood to the muscles and then back again. That's called cell respiration. A byproduct of that is lactic acid. It's normal. It's there. It's what happens. But if you get a buildup of lactic acid in the body, that's when you start getting achy. And that's when you start getting achy and you start feeling that. That's when you're more at risk of injury. And the way you get rid of lactic acid is the muscle contracts and then it releases and it's gone. If you aren't contracting that muscle and releasing it, it's going to build up. So for example, if you're holding your crochet hook and then you're doing a job and that thumb doesn't move, that's building up lactic acid. So every now and again, you need to release it, move it and put it back on again. And so it's all about rotation of tasks and just being aware, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And are you actually moving? Having gross movements, which is big movements, versus fine
yarn out movement.
That's great because you're resetting everything. It's almost like wiping the slate clean with the lactic acid. But it's perhaps your hand that's doing the stitches and holding the hook. That's the one that's not doing so many because you're gripping. So all of your wrist, your thumb, your fingers, they're all in one position. So it's really good to be conscious of that.
Right. So one of the things I was thinking about as we were talking is that, as I've said, because I hold my yarn, I'm one of those people. Yeah, exactly. I'm one of those. So I hold my hook and my yarn in my right hand. So I don't have that much movement with my left. I guess I probably have more than most because I'm bunching the fabric up with it. So while we were talking, I was thinking, well, if I was doing that, and I always try and overextend the movement for pulling more yarn out. So I think of it almost like a ballet dancer. I'm like, I don't know, with the official I would say plie, which it's not, but like I overextend it and make it fancier than it needs to be. That's me all over. But I should then probably just do the same movement with my other arm, and if I'm doing it for one, pretend and do it with the other as well.
Yeah, and you don't want to make things even more complicated, and you want to do something that's going to become a habit, because if you have to think about doing it, you probably forget. And if you're going to sit for a few hours and do it, then again, it's not going to be very good for you. But yeah, anything that's got a gross movement is going to be better than having a fine movement, so that the smaller movements. I can only probably crochet for about 20 minutes at a time.
Wow, that's such a reduced. I mean, I can crochet for 8 hours.
That's a job.
I know. Well, it is a job. That's the point. It is my job.
So if you were in industry and I was walking into in a factory and that was your job, we would have very, very strict guidance on how you were to do it. Because if somebody's asking you to do that, they've got a responsibility for health and safety. Just because you're doing it at home doesn't mean anything.
So okay. So yesterday I probably sat easily for 4 hours.
Okay.
What would you want me to sit? So I've got two positions I tend to sit in. One is a very upright position, and I've got probably 3 locations that I work from within my house and my office, and I always try and make sure that it's a very straight back and that my bum is at the back of my seat. So that's when my feet are on the ground. And then I have like a legs up position, and I might be on the exact same seat, but my feet will be up on the sofa or up on the bed. And I try and do the same and have that right angle from basically my bottom and my leg extension up my back. So let's for instance say that I'm going to sit and do that for 4 to 8 hours in a day. What would you tell me to do? Because I know that there are lots of people out there that don't do this for a job, but they will crochet for that length of time in a day, and sometimes more.
Okay, So you shouldn't sit for longer than 45 minutes.
Okay.
So whether that's get up and get a drink, or go to the toilet, or go and do something else. So 45 minutes, you have to have a break. Sitting straight up is not always the best thing. So if you can slightly recline,
okay,
yeah, that would be better. The reason that you have to recline more when you've got your legs up is because there's more pressure on your spine.
Right.
So if you imagine your spinal cords from your head all the way down to your toes, and if it's under pressure and it's being stretched, it doesn't like it. So if you put your legs up, you have to put your back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you were to squeeze in the middle, it just congest everything.
Okay.
So sitting, great. I would be more worried about your arms and shoulders and your neck.
Right.
Because obviously you're looking down.
You can be down. Yeah.
Yeah. So get yourself comfortable. Everybody's back's different. Some people got a really large lumbar curve. So if you find that you're feeling a bit achy, again, put some support in there with a cushion. So just get yourself comfortable. There is no, using a computer and sitting at a desk, yes, there is a very specific way you're supposed to sit. But when you're doing something like crochet, which is very relaxing, you just want to get yourself comfy.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, if you're doing something now and you're crocheting and you're fine and you don't have any issues, don't change it.
Then it's not an yeah.
But if you're starting to get niggles and aches and pains, then you probably want to look at what you're doing. So get yourself comfortable, either legs up or legs down, but do not sit in that position for longer than 45 minutes. And if you start to get niggles and aches and pains, then less.
Yeah.
But equally, what you shouldn't do is sit for 45 minutes and only be moving your wrists and your arms. So we do fidget as people, we do. So just keep fidgeting, keep moving. Don't sit still.
So in my head, and this will mean something to everybody, do you remember the film Gregory's Girl?
No.
Oh, some of you will. There's a bit where they're under the tree and they're lying down and they're just pretend dancing as they're lying down. So maybe that's what I need to do with my feet.
Yeah.
Or like when you give blood, you're meant to keep your circulation pumping, aren't
you? If you're on a plane as well, same thing.
So it's that same thing.
Perfect.
It's not massive movements.
No.
It's almost like
Wiggle
a little
toes.
mini paddle, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, wiggling your toes, moving your feet. Some people joke that they walk across the Atlantic when they're in an aeroplane. And I think the biggest risk, if I was to look at it as a task analysis, so the biggest risk that crocheters are under, I think, is from neck pain.
Yeah.
Because you're looking down all the time. And if you can, you need to have things around you, like, I don't know, if the TV's on in the background. How many crocheters have watched a whole film on Netflix and never actually seen any of the characters because you're just constantly looking down? I do that all the time. But look up, look out of a window, change the position, and you have to be conscious about that. If you can get your work up, so like put a cushion on your lap, so you can rest your arms. Because one of the best positions is tucking your elbows in, so you're isolating, if you like, and that gives you a really good base to do the work. But then you don't want this to be not moving at all. Yeah. So when you
if it was, you would have a lot less movement.
Yeah. So it's really difficult because you want to focus on the task, which is the crochet. And to do that, it's best to tuck your elbows in and bring it to you, maybe with a cushion, and do the work. But during that process, there's also a different process of getting your yarn again, changing your tension and whatever else. So it is really dynamic. And actually, if you were to replicate, this is why we don't get crochet goods on the market, isn't it? Because it's a skill, it's lots of different movements, lots of different things to consider. If you've got aches and pains, though, you have to look at what have you got to change. So is it your neck that's hurting? How many times do you look up from your crochet? How long do you sit for when you crochet? Because really, you shouldn't be sat for longer than 45 minutes.
So one of the questions that we had from the Crochet Clan was, if there's an amount of time that you should be crocheting for, how long should the break be?
I think it depends on each person. It's better to have lots of little breaks than one big one, I think. But then if you've got pain, then it might be that you want to go and take some painkillers, or because, different people have got pain tolerances, and some people have got chronic pain illnesses. And I'm not saying go and take a load of painkillers just to do crochet. But if you know that you've got arthritis or issues and you need to go and take your painkillers, then let them settle in and let them take effect 20 minutes or so. There's no point doing it if it's going to cause more problems. But the benefits of doing the crochet obviously are going to give you lots of mental support and give you something to focus on that's other than the pain. So a break of at least 5 or 10 minutes, I would say. But as long as you're changing it up and moving things around, you should be paddling your feet. You should be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely need to get better at taking breaks. I've been, my niece has been over here a lot over the last 3 months studying. And that's been really quite healthy, because the way that we've set it up is that she studies for 50 minutes and then she gets a 10-minute break. And at the beginning of that 10-minute break, I will have already made her a cup of tea. So it's been really healthy for me, because it means I'm pulling myself away from my computer or my crochet to make sure that I'm sorting her out. And I think I probably need to just extend that to my own.
So you'll look after your niece better than you look after yourself.
Always.
Typical, but yeah.
Isn't that what we do, though? We're very good at verbalising it for others, and
so you know what you should be doing. You just don't do it.
I just don't do it, because I think you'll understand this, but I'm so task orientated that everything else goes out of the window, and it's like, no, I have to get, or I just have to get to the end of this row, or I just have to get to the end of this section. I'm so focused on getting to the end of a bit that everything else will go out of the window, and I think I need to realign my thinking to be healthier at crochet and knitting and the crafting I do.
It's your job.
And
if you were in a factory, you would be made to rest and you would just do what you were told to do. So you've got a greater responsibility now to look after yourself, because there's nobody that's looking after you, just you. So
that's a really good way of putting it, and I think that also is something for everybody that's listening and watching to take on board as well, is that actually, even if it's not your job, like I said, I know plenty of people that will spend huge amounts of time crafting, whether that's at a sewing machine, embroidery, crochet, knitting, and they need to be their own boss and their own taskmaster on taking breaks and looking after themselves.
Definitely.
Because it's great to crochet for the mental agility, but the physical side of it has to be balanced out as well.
Definitely. And I find I do a lot of crochet in the car, usually on car journeys when husband's driving, and I always notice when I've been on a long car journey, because I've got quite lots of aches and pains, because I normally crochet for 20 minutes, that's as long as my kids will let me do, or some emergency in the house, but when I'm on a car journey it could be 2 hours and I'm just chipping along, and then I'm thinking, why have I got an ache, what's happening? And it's because I've done a bigger stretch than I was used to. So if you are like, you can do it for 8 hours and you're fine. If I was to do 8 hours, I'd be in agony. So if you know that you've got a project coming up and you want to build up your tolerances, then just do it 5 or 10 minutes longer every single day, because it's the same as exercise. You have to just build up to it.
And still take the kind of 10, 15, 20 minute breaks in between, and then another.
So if you can manage to do an hour, but you've got a project that you want to get done, and then the day somebody's birthday or a christening or something. Which
we're always very good at leaving things to the last minute and having that deadline looming for a gift, something that we want to crochet to give away.
It's
Christmas giving of crochet items. Actually, there are two key things: Christmases and the end of the school year. The number of things that you see on Instagram where people are bashing out teacher presents. So actually, so that's coming up.
Plan it in, because little and often is better than one big chunk, because else you might find that actually when you then pick up your hook the next time, you're in pain, and then you might have to leave it for a while. So
one of the other areas I know, lots of my fellow podcasters actually who tend to do a lot of crochet. So I'm thinking of Clarissa Bith in particular, who's Crochet Kate's podcast. She gets a lot of issues with her elbows, and then it might wipe her out for weeks on end where she can't crochet anymore. Is there anything that could specifically, because we've talked a lot about wrists and neck and how you can do that, is there anything specifically that would help with the elbow side of things?
So elbow pain is epicondylitis, and you've got lateral and medial, so one on the outside and one on the inside, and they're also known as golfers and tennis elbow. And the reason we get those problems is because the nerves run very close to the bone, and there's not a lot of padding in those areas.
So, there is not.
So you find some people lean, either leaning on a desk like that or leaning on an arm of a chair. And so whoever's getting elbow problems, just consider, are you doing a leaning thing? And if so, put some padding underneath it. Because sometimes we can get trauma in those areas just through leaning. And then it creates inflammation. The other thing is that what the movement that causes those problems is a grip and a twist. If you think about it, gripping your crochet hook and twisting. That is the movement that creates the epicondylitis. So less of a grip, releasing it. I don't know how many people I'm like, and if you're also concentrating on a new pattern or a new thing, you're not, really jabbing at it. So less of a grip and try not to do as much of a twist.
Yeah.
And regular breaks. You can apply topical anti-inflammatory creams, things like that. Sometimes heat can help. Sometimes heat makes it worse. Again, it depends on what you're like as a person. So to summarize, don't lean, don't grip, and don't twist. But then that means you're not going to be
crocheting.
So just do it in moderation.
Yeah. And I guess if you feel it, then either try the topical is going to be better than taking like ibuprofen as a pill.
Yeah. I'm not obviously here to give prescription advice, but the way I see it is because of that area, because it's so bony and the nerves are right there and the inflammation is right there, then the topical anti-inflammatories are really useful. They're really effective. If you're going to take a tablet, it's got to go through your whole system. It's going to affect your stomach, and if you're going to be using it long term, it can cause problems.
And you may as well just target it to where it's actually required.
It's really good for elbows. Because it's really obvious where it is, and it can penetrate through really easily.
Okay, that's really good. And then, so you talked about heat as well. Can a cool pack have a similar effect? I'm just thinking a lot of listeners live in the US and Canada and have very different climates. So the idea of having a heat pad on you might just be overwhelming if you're, in the Floridian sunshine. Whereas a cool pack might be a slightly different approach to it. Yeah,
so if you look on any of the physiotherapy websites online, it's called hot and cold therapy.
Yeah.
So the theory behind it is if you've got an injury, then you use the cold to remove the bad swelling, and then you encourage good swelling with heat. So it doesn't have to be a hot pack, but it could be some kind of massage or rubbing, or sometimes you get like tiger balm that increases blood flow and things like that. So as long as you do the cooling and then you do the warming, it doesn't matter how it happens. In this country, we get cold, wet, horrible weather, and a nice hot water bottle.
Yeah, we love a hot water bottle over here. I think probably Britain sells more hot water bottles than any other country.
Or you can get wheat packs and things like that. But I know exactly what you're saying. But if you've got an arthritic injury rather than a trauma injury, then heat is usually the best, because it penetrates into the bones and the joints, and it feels nicer. It encourages good blood flow, and you get some relief from it. But if it's an injury, as in you've just done it, then cold is always better.
Is the best one. We do have quite a few people I know, just from kind of Instagram conversations and YouTube conversations, quite a lot of the crochet clan do have issues with arthritis, especially in their wrists. Is there any specific advice, or is the advice that you've already given what they should be following?
It is difficult because arthritis is an inflammation of the joint, so it's always going to be there. And then by doing a movement that's repetitive, you are going to make it worse. So doing it in moderation, making sure that you're taking time out and resting, using your medication, all of that is going to help. Massage is really good to try and get some of the blood flow away. So arthritis, you tend to get lots of swelling, and the swelling then causes the pain. So if you can, before you start your crochet or after you've finished a session, just massage into your hands, and you always want to massage back to the heart. So rubbing over those, it tends to be like the thumb area and the fingers. So massaging, just any kind of rubbing, but push it back that way.
I didn't know that. So you're always back to the heart.
Always back to the heart.
Right.
If you were to rub that way constantly, you might have really fat sausage fingers because you're pushing it, and that wouldn't be good for anybody. So any massage in any part of the body is always, you should push back to the heart. So
did not know that. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
But wrist and arthritis, it's difficult because it's always going to be aggravated, so there's a fine balance. You know your body, and particularly if it's wet and horrible weather, you expect your arthritis to be worse. Warm, lovely weather, you expect it to be better. So
there's a lovely lady, Nancy, who comes to Wool Gathering Sandbach, the craft group that I run, and I quite often see her with wrist protectors on. And one of the specific questions that we've had from my friend Sharon is whether wrist protectors are actually any good. She has issues with her neck and can't move it that much, and the movement of crochet really heavily affects her neck, and she's found that if she wears a neck brace, it weakens the muscles in her neck. And she's wondering, is that the same thing? If she was to use wrist braces, would it weaken the muscles? Is it a good thing to do? Or
It's the same principle. Ultimately, if you rely on a support to support your joint, then that joint doesn't have to work so hard.
Yeah.
And as with exercise, you wouldn't run a race without training. So you want those muscles to be strong to be able to support you to do the job you want to do. So yes, it will weaken the joint. However, if you've got neck problems anyway, and wearing a brace helps you to do your job, that helps you to do the crochet, and without it you wouldn't be able to do it, then again I would say, well, okay, wear it, but don't wear them all the time, and don't sit and do 8 hours worth.
It's a real shame. Sharon is a designer, and she's gone from holding her hook in the more standard way to trying out knitting, because then that was a slightly different set of movements, and then eventually it's affected her knitting. Then she went to Tunisian crochet, and now her neck has been affected by Tunisian crochet. She's tried crocheting the way that I crochet, and that seems okay at the moment, but she's just really struggling to find a method that works for her, that allows her to support her living and, you know, have less pain in her life.
There's lots of other things you can do. I mean, you're moving away from crochet slightly, which is absolutely fine, but I definitely would ask her to speak to me, because there are so many things you can do for pain management, pain control, for chronic conditions. And it might be that there's a slightly different way of working, or there's a different way of managing the pain. And, you know, there's just so many different things we can talk about. Acupuncture, different types of herbal remedies, looking at the type of diet that she's got. For example, if you've got a diet that's, if you're looking at the Chinese medicine, if you've got a diet that's high in acidy kind of foods, that's going to create more inflammation in the body. So you want more alkaline foods, and to reduce the inflammation. So there are tons of stuff that we can do. So if she wants to have a chat,
I will let her know. She lives in North Wales, but she comes through to our craft group every 2 weeks. So I will, and it's this Thursday.
Doctors have got a medical model, so they are very much, what's the problem and how can we treat it with tablets or operations or whatever. Nurses, we focus on a biopsychosocial model. So we want to look at, well, okay, that's the problem, but how can we fix it using a whole range of loads of other stuff. It's
not this one defined path and different things for different people and what will work for them.
And an attitude and mindset. I mean, if you're a believer in traditional medicines, and, you know, instead of, if you've got a headache, taking a chamomile tea instead of taking a tablet, then
I'm a tiger balm girl.
There you go. Then you know, the buy-in, it's going to be better for you as well. Because if I said to my husband, have a chamomile tea, you know, he'd be like, no. And it would never work. He would still have a headache. And he's so belligerent, he would still have a headache even if he didn't have a headache. He'd tell me. But so if obviously her driver and her passion is wanting to carry on crocheting, and she's obviously got all these problems, then let's explore, well, what else have you tried? What else can we do to keep you crocheting?
She's so talented as well. It's like, I really would love to see Sharon in a space where she's designing again and able to do it. I mean, her output was phenomenal, and it's really affected what she can do.
And that's the point in occupational health where we just think, right, we've got to really sort this out now. Because the point of when a health condition affects your hobby, then it's not right. Affecting your job, it's important, because that's obviously what you're going to get paid for. But as soon as it starts affecting a hobby and something that you like doing, then enough's enough. What can we do to change it?
Excellent. Right, let's have a look at some of the other questions that we've had. So we've covered the break, kind of covered the chair. Is there anything else that we should talk about with that, the type of chair that you're in?
No, just get comfy, but don't tuck your feet under you, don't cross your legs, you know. And I'm the world's worst for putting my leg underneath me. Just think about blood flow. So if you're going to be sitting on your legs, you're going to be restricting your blood flow, and you'll be increasing your risk of clots.
Does a cat sat on your lap also, does that count for restricting your blood flow?
No, I think that's
fine. Really? Pom will be very happy about that.
Just don't get hair in your work, though.
Oh, it's constant. If you've ever, I ripped out a project the other day, and I was gobsmacked by how much cat hair and my own hair was in there, and I would try to rip it out so far and be like, no, there's another clump of something. It's just delightful.
Bless.
One of the questions we had was, are there any kind of Pilates type exercises that would help with shoulder, elbow, neck complaints?
Well, I'm not a Pilates instructor, so I can't give any specific advice on that. But there are lots of websites here in the UK that have got exercises on for those specific issues.
Yeah.
And I've got them all on my laptop, and I can share them with you.
Brilliant.
They're from recognised companies, so like Arthritis UK and the Charter Society of Physiotherapy.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling people how to do exercises, but what I am saying is these professionals were said to try this, and it might work for you.
And I think that's something that I personally want to be really clear on, is that these are suggestions only. We're just trying to give you some thinking around your physical health when you are crafting, and we will pinpoint you back to the doctor, and a load of resources that you can go and look at that will show you what it is that you can do. So you're taking these suggestions on your own basis, basically.
Yes.
Disclaimer. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we live in a world where people like to sue now, and
we know that more than most in the health profession.
I bet you do, but really bet you do.
Yeah. So I can give you all the links to those.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you. And is there anything that crafters should specifically avoid doing? You've just talked about tucking your legs under, which I hadn't really thought about before, but
I don't think there's anything that's a massive red flag. Just work within your limits, really. And I'm a big believer in planning. We've talked about the deadlines and things, and don't leave things to the last minute. Don't do 8 hours worth in one go if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
Planning things in, getting yourself comfortable, but not too comfortable that you just sit there.
Yeah. So I guess within that, then, what you could do is if you want to be sat crafting and you have the capability to do it, other than your physical issues, then moving from one craft to another would be one way. So for me, I actually get more pain through knitting than I do through crochet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the physicality of them, what it is. So I will quite often, if I'm doing something for knitting and I start to feel any level of pain, I'll switch it out to crochet for a little while and then come back to the knitting. And I know that's not a break and I'm going to be better, but I do just hop from one craft to the next. So I guess that's something else that people could do.
You're changing up the requirements of your wrists and your hands. So yes, it's better. Occupational therapists, those part of their questioning. So let's say if I said to you, how long can you walk for before you start to get pain, and you said 10 minutes. Well, that's not how long you can walk for. You can actually only walk for 5 minutes, because then you've got to get back. Yeah. So if you think about in terms of your knitting, you shouldn't get to the painful bit. You should stop before. So because what tends to happen, you're the same kind of personality that I am. You'll start to feel a niggle. I'm just going to finish this row. You'll push yourself, and then we're not talking irreparable damage. But we've got those niggles, we've got those aches that already at a cellular level you started to get inflammation. Then when you then carry on with your crochet, yes, it's a better movement for you, but that inflammation is still there, and it can be aggravated. So
I suspect that one of the things that would really help me is having quite a sturdy pillow. Because with the knitting, it's more that both of my hands are further up. I knit like my hands are quite far up. It's much closer, and I feel like I'm looking at it more intensely, and I wonder if that's size of stitches. Sorry, we've got a lovely little child singing down the lane. It's quite cute. Whereas my crochet, I don't know why, but I tend to crochet further away, and that might just be to do with eyesight, and that the crochet stitches are bigger.
Maybe.
And also the fear of making a mistake in crochet is less, because it's easier to rip out and redo. Whereas knitting, if you make a mistake, it's such a bind to pull it back.
I don't know what to do with the ends of your knitting needles, and I'm like, do you tuck them under? Do you stick them out? Or...
Go to a circular needle, and then you don't have the flappy elbows. So much easier.
One of the things that I took to doing, because I got quite a bit of neck pain, is using a pregnancy pillow. And they're the big arched ones.
All the way around, don't they?
And you can also get breastfeeding pillows, which are a lot denser and harder, and they sit like a bit like a half moon shape around you, and you can rest your elbows on them if you want to, but it tends to be my forearms that I rest, and then you just work away. If you think about the weight of your arms, if you're having to hold the weight of your arms up and do movements, and if you've got neck problems, that can actually be quite
And if
painful.
you're working on quite a big, like a blanket is a huge amount of weight to be, and I know you're not taking all of that weight on board, but it is sat on your legs, and then when you're moving it, it can be a huge amount of fabric that you're moving at every time.
Yeah, I tend to do my blanket work in bed. Because I've got it all spread out, and it's not a summer project at all. It's obviously a winter project, but I've got it all spread out, and then I'm kind of just moving it side to side. But it's when you then have to turn it and then carry on. But then that's good because it's a gross movement. You're getting all the blood moving, and so that should be encouraged.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. And one of the questions that was asked is, I mean, obviously chronic pain and chronic illness is quite a large gambit, but do you have any specific advice for people that might be in chronic pain beyond what we've already covered? And
I think we've covered it really. Just work within your own limitations. There are lots of painkillers and traditional remedies and things that can help with chronic pain. A lot of times the benefit of the crochet from a mental health point of view is worth a little bit of the pain. Now that's me saying it, and I've got chronic pain. So don't let it put you off, but work within your limitations. You know, I think if I was to say to everybody, you've got chronic pain, don't crochet, then we'd have a lot of very sick people, mentally and physically. Because don't forget that moving with arthritis, it keeps those joints moving, it keeps you supple, it keeps you fit. But I think speed is something to consider as well. I am quite a slow crocheter, and that's on purpose because I think as soon as you speed up, you start increasing the risk of injury. And especially to get something done quickly, that's when you'll just power through, you'll ignore your body. So if you're just slow and steady, you're still doing something that you love, you're still enjoying it, but you're not having the risks of injuring yourself.
I tend to listen to a lot of podcasts and music when I'm crocheting, and I've found that the type of music, I found the same with driving actually. If I have happy hardcore on, then I drive quite quickly. But I found the same with crocheting, with knitting, is actually if I have more relaxing, sedate music on, then actually I just take my time over it a little bit more, and then if the track changes and something a bit more intense, then I will speed up. So maybe
huge thing, and this is the thing for me, that my mindset had to change when I got injured. And where does the pleasure come from? Is the pleasure of crocheting actually the actual stitches and the repetition and just doing it, or is the pleasure from the end goal, which is actually finishing the product? I hardly ever finish anything at the moment, so I don't have all of that pleasure. But for the people who perhaps are in chronic pain, just the fact that you're making the stitches should be enough. And yes, I know we want to get to an end goal, but just take your time. We should just be enjoying the moment of the fact that we're crocheting, not that we're finishing a product.
I think that's a really good point. One that I maybe could take on board a little bit more. I genuinely feel better every day if I've crafted at some level. And it might be a little bit of dyeing or preparing natural dyes in the pot, but just something. It makes me feel like I'm in touch with myself. Like I've just done something for me. It's not about housework. It's not about cooking. It's not about and although it's my business, it doesn't feel like it's about my business. It's about time into me, and that kind of restorative recharge of the batteries. That's how it makes me feel.
I saw something on Facebook yesterday that was a picture that somebody had drawn in a bullet journal, which is another passion of mine. But and it was a picture of a battery that you would see on a phone, and it was down to almost zero. And it said something along the lines of, you wouldn't let this happen to your phone, so why'd you let it happen to you? And self-care is so important. It really is. And they're doing, in the NHS in England now, we're doing social prescribing, which is where if people have got problems with mental health or physical health, the GPs are saying, go and have a day in a spa, or go and see Weight Watchers, or go for a walk, or do a hobby. And that's why my GP said to me, you must do crochet every single day, because it's something that gives you pleasure that is for you.
And is recharging the batteries. And
so important.
That's fantastic. So for the takeaways from that for me are take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Regularly, every 4 to 5 minutes. For me, that, to be truthful, it's going to look more like a 5-minute break, make a cup of tea, get back to it.
Yeah.
But that works for me, and I'm not somebody who's in pain with what I do, at least not very often. For me to also extend my exercises, and if I'm doing it for one side of my body, then try and do it for the other.
Mm-hmm.
To paddle when I've got my feet up. And I know that my feet shift a lot when I'm sat in an upright position. So to make sure I'm paddling and moving my muscles when I'm in a kind of foot up position. And also to recline, because I've always very consciously been putting my bum to the back of my seat and trying to sit very upright. But actually a slight recline is going to be better for me.
You're thinking of posture with a desk and a computer, which
this is Matthew. This is his fault for.
I'm sure he's got a lot to be sorry for. But
does,
when you're looking at a computer, you're being dictated to by something else, by something that you're looking at, so a computer screen. But when you're crocheting, it's with you. Yeah. So one of the best positions that I've ever seen was a real recline, like a lazy boy chair kind of thing. That's perfect. You're secure, you're comfortable, and great. There's no pressure on any of your joints.
Right.
But you shouldn't get too comfy that you don't want to move.
No, you don't want to move. Yeah. Okay. Also, the use of a pillow, I think, would be really good. And that thing, and I do try and do it, but I only remember to do it when I think I've got an issue, which is to look up and away and focus. And when I do that, and I try and look, because of where I sit in the kitchen, that's where I sit most often to craft, and I can see through 2 of our doorways, and that's where I try and focus in, is the fireplace in our dining room. And then what I consciously do after that is lift my crafting up, so I'm trying to do it at that height, but I know that over time it goes down and my neck goes down. So I think just being a little bit more aware of keeping that upright in my neck and looking further away than just at my crocheting would be helpful.
I think because crochet is looking down a lot, if when I send you the exercises, so if you concentrate on a lot of neck stretches and getting, releasing that tension, that would be really useful as well.
Yeah. And then I guess the other takeaways for me were about the using the cream instead of a tablet if I am in pain with it, and just being a little bit more aware of listening to my body before it gets to a danger point. Which I'm really quite in tune with my body, so I think I push it. I know I do.
But you're task focused. You want something to be finished, and that's the end goal. Whereas my goal is just to sit and crochet,
and enjoy. And I enjoy that bit as well. It's very definitely. And I time that. Yeah, I am my words. I am my own worst enemy because I time myself and I compete with myself.
Oh my goodness!
I'm such an idiot.
In industry, the biggest risk is when there's time constraints.
Yeah.
Because a job can be safe until you increase the speed at which the job is done. Yeah. So you shouldn't do that.
I know. But I'm so self-competitive. I'll be like, well, it took me this long to do that last row. I wonder if I can do it more quickly, which, that is not what I should be doing with my crochet. So I've taken some really good lessons back from this. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for spending time with us. I know that lots of the people that are going to watch and listen will have some really good takeaways from this, and like we said, we'll back it up with the resources that are available. So there will be the normal show notes, and within the show notes I'll provide links to all of the resources that Lyndsey has kindly given us out. But within that, what I'll also do is provide all of your contact details, because you're Staffordshire based, aren't you?
The office is in Staffordshire, but we provide a national coverage. We have to be careful when we offer advice outside of the UK, because I'm a registered nurse in the UK only. But I'm more than happy to give people, have a chat with people and give them advice, as long as they recognise that it's only advice and I'm not prescribing anything.
Yeah, and I think that's a real takeout. This is advice only. There is no prescription here. Take a look at the resources and follow your own path, basically. We're not telling you what to do here. We're just making suggestions.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lovely to have you on.
Yay. Bye.
Bye-bye.